15. Worst Nymphomaniacs in Gospel Music History. Welcome to Legends of Black Excellence. Today, we're diving into a side of gospel music you've never seen before, where faith and forbidden desires collide. These gospel legends, celebrated for their powerful voices and soul-stirring music, hid scandalous secrets that shocked their fans and the church alike. From secret affairs to public scandals, these artists pushed the boundaries of faith and sexuality in ways that defy tradition. Get ready to be amazed, shocked, and maybe even a little uncomfortable. Don't forget to hit the like button, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more jaw-dropping stories of Black excellence. Sister Rosetta Tharpe. Sister Rosetta Tharpe wasn't just a gospel legend. She was a genre-bending, boundary-shattering force of nature whose musical prowess transformed American music forever. Born in Cotton Plant, Arkansas in 1915, she was raised in the Church of God in Christ, where she learned to blend fervent spiritual conviction with soul-stirring guitar mastery. By the 1930s, she was already revolutionizing the gospel sound, merging traditional hymns with the rhythmic drive of early rock and roll. Tharpe's commanding presence on stage, armed with a Gibson guitar and a booming, resonant voice, captivated crowds from sanctuaries to secular theaters. She toured extensively across the country and later Europe, defying the racial and gender norms of her time. Her fiery performances attracted audiences of all kinds, from devout churchgoers to blues and rock enthusiasts. She influenced countless musicians, including Chuck Berry, Johnny Cash, Elvis Presley, and Little Richard. Yet her legacy often remained underappreciated in mainstream music history. Behind the spotlight, however, Tharpe's personal life was a mosaic of contradictions. Married multiple times to men, including a highly publicized 1951 wedding held in a Washington, D.C. stadium with 25,000 fans in attendance, her romantic affiliations were also colored by intense speculation. Most notably, her decades-long relationship with Marie Knight, her musical partner and constant touring companion, gave rise to long-standing rumors of a romantic connection. Though neither woman ever publicly confirmed their relationship, the intimacy they shared on stage and off raised questions in an era when conversations about same-sex partnerships were taboo, especially in religious communities. Observers noted that their bond seemed to extend beyond professional collaboration, fueled by shared hotel rooms, travel arrangements, and a spiritual and artistic unity that was difficult to ignore. In many ways, Tharpe defied labels musically and personally. She was a gospel star with the energy of a rock performer, a religious woman who courted controversy, and possibly a queer artist in a time when such identities were condemned. Her life reflected a duality: sacred devotion and personal rebellion coexisting in one trailblazing soul. While some modern commentators have labeled her among gospel's most sexually unrestrained figures, this perception speaks more to her fearless pursuit of authenticity than any scandal. She lived on her own terms in her artistry and in love. Today, Rosetta Tharpe is not only hailed as the godmother of rock and roll, but also as a symbol of courage in challenging societal expectations. Her story is not simply about transgression, it's about transcendence. She sang, played, and lived with unapologetic fervor, leaving behind a legacy that speaks louder with each passing generation. Clara Ward. Clara Ward, born in Philadelphia in 1924, was a towering figure in the world of gospel music. A powerhouse vocalist, savvy group leader, and cultural icon who helped shape the modern gospel sound. Alongside her mother, Gertrude Ward, she co-founded the Ward Singers, a groundbreaking ensemble that blended sanctified church traditions with theatrical flair. Clara's charisma, vocal agility, and show-stopping stage presence turned her into one of the first gospel stars to bridge the gap between sacred music and mainstream visibility. From the 1940s into the 1960s, the Ward Singers dominated gospel circuits. Clara often served as the group's vocal centerpiece, commanding audiences with her expressive soprano and dramatic delivery. Her arrangements introduced choreography, sequined gowns, and stage theatrics into gospel concerts, elements previously frowned upon in conservative church circles. Though critics accused her of commercializing sacred music, her innovations drew record-breaking crowds and inspired countless successors. Yet Clara Ward's personal life was as layered as her vocal arrangements. While she never publicly identified her sexual orientation, long-time whispers surrounded her close-knit relationships with several female members of her group. These rumors, compounded by her fiercely private nature and long-standing reluctance to marry, fueled speculation that Clara may have engaged in intimate same-sex relationships, an especially taboo subject in the religious South of her time. Adding to the intrigue, Clara reportedly enjoyed the luxuries of celebrity life that many gospel singers shunned. She performed in nightclubs, appeared in Hollywood films, and rubbed elbows with politicians and celebrities. She sang at President Eisenhower's inauguration and toured internationally, even performing for royalty. This embrace of secular fame created tension within the gospel community, and among her religious fans, many of whom viewed her glamorous lifestyle as inappropriate for someone singing the Lord's music. Despite these controversies, Ward remained a dominant force. Those who worked with her described her as a demanding but visionary leader, one who understood both artistry and business. Yet behind the glitz was a woman burdened by expectations from her religious upbringing, her fame, and perhaps her need to suppress parts of herself to maintain public favor. Clara passed away at just 48 years old, but her legacy endures. Her style revolutionized gospel performance, making it bolder, more expressive, and undeniably influential. And while her private life remains clouded in speculation, it speaks volumes about the silent struggles many gospel artists endured, balancing authenticity with survival in a world that wasn't always kind to difference. In truth, Clara Ward wasn't just a gospel singer. She was a complex, trailblazing woman who lived with intensity, sang with passion, and left behind a story still echoing in today's conversations about freedom, identity, and artistry. Marie Knight. Marie Knight was a masterful singer, pianist, and performer whose artistry left a lasting imprint on gospel and early R&B music. Born in 1920 in Sanford, Florida, Knight's musical journey began in the sanctified churches of New Jersey, where her velvety alto voice quickly caught attention. But her career would catapult to national recognition in the 1940s when she joined forces with the electrifying Sister Rosetta Tharpe, a partnership that would define a transformative era in gospel history. Together, Knight and Tharpe formed a dazzling duo blending spiritual fervor with rhythmic showmanship in a way that thrilled audiences across America. Their onstage chemistry was electric. Knight's smooth vocals, providing a soulful counterpoint to Tharpe's gritty guitar and bold presence. They toured relentlessly through the 1940s and early 1950s, recording gospel hits like Didn't It Rain and Beams of Heaven that cemented their legacy in sacred music. However, their close personal bond sparked speculation. For decades, fans and historians have questioned whether their relationship went beyond the professional. Although neither woman ever addressed the rumors publicly, their deep companionship, shared hotel rooms, and constant presence in each other's lives created fertile ground for whispered assumptions, especially in an era when queer identities in gospel were taboo and often condemned. Knight eventually stepped out on her own, pursuing a solo career that incorporated both gospel and secular sounds. She faced personal heartbreak, including the tragic loss of her 2 children in a house fire, which led to a temporary withdrawal from the music scene. Still, she returned, continuing to perform into the 2000s, always with the same grace and vocal power that had defined her early years. Unlike many peers, Marie maintained strict privacy throughout her life. She never publicly commented on the rumors surrounding her sexuality or her relationship with Tharpe. This discretion helped preserve her professional reputation but also left a veil over much of her personal truth. Marie Knight died in 2009 at the age of 89, leaving behind a nuanced legacy. Her contribution to gospel music was undeniable. Her voice was pure, her spirit resilient, and her life a quiet act of endurance in a world that demanded silence about desire. Whether or not she and Tharpe shared a romantic relationship, The devotion they showed one another reshaped gospel history. Knight's story is one of brilliance and mystery, an artist whose strength lay in her subtlety, whose voice carried power, and whose legacy endures in the spiritual and sonic echoes of every stage she graced. Anthony Charles Williams II Tone Bam Slade. Anthony Charles Williams II, known to fans as Tonix and later as B. Slade, is perhaps one of the most revolutionary and polarizing figures in modern gospel music. Born in 1975 in San Diego, California, Williams was a musical prodigy raised in a deeply religious Pentecostal household. By his early 20s, he had already become a sensation in the gospel scene, renowned for his staggering vocal range, emotional depth, and daring musical compositions that pushed the boundaries of sacred sound. Tonix's 2004 album, Out the Box, was a commercial and critical triumph. With its genre-bending blend of gospel R&B and hip-hop influences, it earned him a Stellar Award and a Grammy nomination, signaling a bold new direction for contemporary gospel. But while audiences were mesmerized by his music, many within the church world were less comfortable with his flamboyant style and honest lyrics about struggle, temptation, and identity. The tension exploded in 2009 when Tonix publicly came out as gay in a televised interview. In a genre where conservative Christian values dominate, the backlash was swift and intense. Many churches withdrew their support, gospel radio stations stopped playing his music, and former allies turned their backs. But rather than retreat, he evolved, rebranding himself as B. Slade, an openly queer artist, free from the constraints of traditional gospel expectations. As B. Slade, he embraced a fluid identity, describing himself as queer rather than using labels like gay or bisexual. His music became even more experimental, fusing funk, electronica, soul, and spoken word with themes of spiritual awakening, sexual liberation, and mental health. He refused to live a divided life, choosing authenticity over religious appeasement. Williams's journey has not been without struggle. He has spoken openly about the pain of rejection, the complexities of reconciling faith and orientation, and the personal toll of breaking away from a judgmental system. Still, his art continues to thrive, respected in both mainstream and underground music spaces. Far from a cautionary tale, Tonix, B. Slade is a case study in radical self-acceptance. His willingness to shatter expectations, musically, spiritually, and sexually forced gospel music to confront its own hypocrisy and cultural rigidity. In doing so, he became more than a singer, he became a movement. Today, he remains a symbol of resilience and redefinition, challenging the notion that one's truth must be silenced to serve a higher calling. His story is proof that faith and freedom can in fact coexist. Carl Bean. Carl Bean was more than a gospel singer. He was a fearless voice for identity, equality, and spiritual inclusivity in a time when speaking out could cost everything. Born in Baltimore in 1944, Bean was raised in the black church, where he discovered both a deep love for gospel music and an early awareness of the tension between his faith and his sexuality. This tension would eventually define his legacy not as a contradiction, but as a catalyst for a movement. In 1977, Bean stepped into the national spotlight with the release of the song I Was Born This Way, a disco anthem that became a powerful declaration of LGBTQ+ self-acceptance. With lyrics affirming love and identity, the track was one of the first explicitly gay-themed songs to gain mainstream attention decades before Lady Gaga's similarly titled hit. Though it found success in clubs and among queer communities, the track also drew criticism from conservative religious spaces, including the gospel industry, that had once embraced him. But Bean never apologized for who he was. Instead, he leaned into his calling. In 1982, he founded the Unity Fellowship Church movement, a groundbreaking denomination built specifically to welcome and affirm LGBTQ+ people of color. His message was simple but radical. God's love is unconditional, and no one should be excluded based on their sexual identity. The movement grew rapidly, offering a safe spiritual home for thousands who had been rejected by traditional congregations. While Bean had a background in gospel singing, he is best remembered for his activism and ministry. He rarely discussed romantic relationships publicly, but he spoke openly about being a gay man and the trauma of hiding his truth for years. He considered it his mission to liberate others from shame and spiritual exile, preaching a theology rooted in love, dignity, and healing. Bean passed away in 2021 at the age of 77. His legacy lives on not just in music but in the church's communities and hearts he helped heal. For many, he was the first person to show that it was possible to be both queer and devout, that one's truth didn't have to come at the cost of one's soul. In the world of gospel, Carl Bean was a rebel, a trailblazer, and above all, a bridge between worlds long thought incompatible. His story is a testament to spiritual courage and the power of music to break chains both personal and institutional. Alex Bradford. Alex Bradford was a force of nature on the gospel stage, part preacher, part showman, and entirely original. Born in Bessemer, Alabama in 1927, Bradford began singing in church as a child, and by age 13 had composed his first gospel song. His career skyrocketed in the 1950s when he moved to Chicago and released hit after hit, including Too Close to Heaven and I'm Too Near My Heavenly Home songs that became anthems for a generation of gospel fans. What set Bradford apart was not just his voice, though it was powerful and unmistakable, but his flamboyant stage persona. He brought Broadway energy to the pulpit, incorporating theatrical gestures, facial expressions, and even choreographed movements into performances that dazzled audiences. He was a pioneer of what would later influence gospel greats like James Cleveland and crossover performers in soul and R&B. Yet behind the curtain, Alex Bradford's personal life was shrouded in secrecy. Throughout his career, rumors circulated about his same-sex attractions, whispers that were never confirmed publicly, but that circulated within gospel circles. In an era when homosexuality was criminalized in many states and considered an abomination by much of the religious establishment, Bradford had little choice but to keep his private life locked away. Though there is no direct evidence of him engaging in romantic relationships with men, his behavior and reputation often placed him at the center of quiet speculation. Bradford never addressed the rumors. Instead, he let his work speak. He mentored young artists, directed choirs, and even toured internationally. In the 1960s, he took gospel to Broadway, starring in the Tony-nominated musical Your Arms Too Short to Box with God, proving that sacred music could hold its own on secular stages. Despite the gossip, Bradford remained a beloved figure. He didn't need to confirm or deny anything. His artistry commanded respect. Still, those who knew him say he lived with a tension between public worship and private identity, navigating fame in a world that wasn't ready to fully embrace difference. Alex Bradford died in 1978, but his influence endures. His compositions are still sung in churches today, and his larger-than-life performances laid the foundation for modern gospel expression. While the questions about his personal life may never be answered, his legacy as a musical innovator is beyond dispute. Bradford's story is a reminder that some of gospel's brightest stars shone while hiding deep personal truths, offering praise to heaven while carrying secrets they could never speak aloud. Wilmer Little Axe Broadnax. Wilmer Little Axe Broadnax was a trailblazing figure in gospel music whose voice soared with power even as his personal truth remained hidden from public view for most of his life. Born in Houston, Texas in 1916 and assigned female at birth, Broadnax lived as a man throughout his adult life, an extraordinary act of defiance during a time when transgender identities were neither acknowledged nor accepted, especially within the conservative world of black gospel. Broadnax began his singing career in the 1930s, performing with the Golden Echoes, before gaining national recognition with renowned gospel quartets like the Spirit of Memphis Quartet and the Five Trumpets. His high tenor voice, razor-sharp timing, and emotional phrasing made him a standout in a genre dominated by deep, resonant male leads. He became beloved by audiences for his spiritual intensity and commanding presence on stage. Despite his fame, Wilmer was intensely private. Very few outside of his closest circles knew about his gender identity during his lifetime. It wasn't until his death in 1992, following a fatal altercation with his partner, that the truth emerged during the coroner's examination. News of his trans identity stunned the gospel community and sparked conversations that had long been suppressed within the genre. While no credible accounts describe Broadnax as hypersexual or promiscuous, he lived a life defined by constant vigilance. Maintaining his identity in an era of violent intolerance required secrecy, courage, and profound resilience. He had romantic relationships with women which aligned with his male identity, but any speculation beyond that remains undocumented. What cannot be debated is his monumental contribution to gospel music. Broadnax helped define the golden age of quartet singing, blending tight harmonies with dramatic vocal stylings that influenced generations. His nickname, Little Axe, reflected his dynamic energy and spiritual sharpness on stage, despite his small physical stature. Wilmer's story complicates traditional gospel narratives. As a transgender man singing in male quartets in the mid-20th century, he challenged unspoken gender rules with every performance. His life is not just an example of artistic excellence, but of profound personal bravery. Today, Wilmer Little Axe Broadnax is increasingly recognized as both a musical icon and a queer pioneer. His ability to command stages while living authentically in private reveals the silent cost of survival in a world that demanded conformity. In honoring his legacy, we remember a man whose voice moved heaven and whose life defied the expectations of earth. Billy Preston. Billy Preston was a prodigy whose unmatched skill on the keys made him a central figure in both sacred and secular music. Born in Houston in 1946 and raised in Los Angeles, he started playing the organ at age 3. By age 10, he was performing alongside gospel greats like Mahalia Jackson and Andre Crouch. His natural talent and joyful spirit quickly set him apart in the church scene, and it wasn't long before he transitioned into broader musical spaces. By the 1960s, Preston was a sought-after studio musician, collaborating with icons like Ray Charles, Sam Cooke, and eventually the Beatles. He played on their seminal Get Back sessions and became one of the only musicians ever credited on a Beatles record. His own hits like Nothing from Nothing and Will It Go Round in Circles showcased his ability to merge gospel emotion with pop accessibility. Though deeply rooted in faith, Preston's personal life was marked by quiet struggle. He was openly gay, a rare position for a black man in the gospel world at the time. Still, he never paraded his sexuality, preferring discretion while maintaining authenticity in his music. There were no public scandals tied to sexual excess, but Preston's romantic life remained intentionally private, likely due to the societal and industry pressures of the time. Despite outward success, Preston faced inner battles. He struggled with addiction and legal issues throughout the 1980s and 1990s, which temporarily derailed his career. However, he always returned to his spiritual roots, performing gospel well into his later years and recording with artists like Aretha Franklin and the Winans. What makes Preston's story especially compelling is his ability to maintain faith without surrendering his truth. In a genre often hostile to queerness, he stood firm, not with fiery declarations, but with quiet integrity. He never disavowed the church even when it offered little sanctuary in return. Billy Preston died in 2006, at the age of 59. Though gone too soon, he left behind a staggering musical legacy and an enduring example of how one can harmonize spiritual devotion with personal authenticity. He wasn't defined by his sexuality, but by the joy and soul he poured into every note. His life challenges narrow definitions of holiness, proving that brilliance and struggle, faith and identity can coexist in harmony. James Cleveland. James Cleveland, often revered as the king of gospel, was a transformative force whose musical genius reshaped the sound of 20th century church music. Born in 1931 in Chicago, he began his journey as a choir boy and eventually became a composer, choir director, and preacher. His arrangements brought complexity and sophistication to gospel songs, blending traditional hymns with blues, jazz, and even classical undertones. His influence was seismic, founding the Gospel Music Workshop of America GMWA in 1968 and mentoring future legends like Aretha Franklin and Reverend James Moore. Cleveland's powerful baritone and emotive delivery moved congregations to tears. Songs such as Peace Be Still and Lord Help Me to Hold Out remain anthems in black churches across the globe. Yet while his musical legacy is unquestionable, his private life has long been shrouded in speculation and silence. Throughout his career, persistent rumors surrounded Cleveland's sexuality. He never married, and whispers circulated regarding same-sex relationships, often quietly discussed but never confirmed. In the gospel community, especially within the black church, such topics were taboo. Homosexuality was stigmatized, especially for someone in leadership. Cleveland, aware of the risks, maintained a carefully guarded persona, rarely granting interviews and avoiding personal discussions. In the 1990s, stories emerged linking Cleveland to a scandal involving alleged sexual relationships and legal battles, although much remains undocumented or based on hearsay. Some sources suggest he may have lived with a male companion for years. Others point to his lyrics full of yearning, emotional intensity, and unspoken sorrow as coded reflections of a man wrestling with identity under religious scrutiny. James Cleveland passed away in 1991 from complications related to respiratory illness. Unconfirmed reports suggested HIV/AIDS-related conditions, but no official statement ever clarified the matter. His funeral, attended by thousands, reflected the deep respect he commanded despite the unanswered questions. Today, Cleveland's life remains emblematic of the emotional and spiritual cost of concealment. While his contributions to gospel music are celebrated, his story also serves as a cautionary tale about what the church demands in exchange for acceptance. The tension between public holiness and private reality weighed heavily on him. His voice was filled with raw emotion, not just because of his talent, but possibly because he was singing the very prayers he couldn't speak aloud. James Cleveland changed gospel music forever, but he also reminds us that even the most anointed voices can carry hidden burdens. Ray Boltz. Ray Boltz rose to prominence in the 1990s as one of the most heartfelt and sincere voices in contemporary Christian music. Born in Indiana in 1953, Boltz's songs told vivid emotional stories rooted in themes of faith, family, and redemption. Tracks like Thank You, The Anchor Holds and I Pledge, Allegiance to the Lamb became staples in evangelical circles, earning him multiple Dove Awards and cementing his place as a trusted voice of inspiration for millions. For much of his career, Boltz appeared to be the epitome of the traditional Christian artist, a devoted husband, father of 4, and committed church member. But behind his public persona, he battled an internal truth he could no longer ignore. In 2008, Boltz shocked the Christian music world when he publicly came out as gay in an interview with the Washington Blade. He had quietly separated from his wife in 2005 and relocated to Florida to start a new chapter in solitude. His coming out was not a result of scandal or coercion. It was a deliberate act of liberation after years of inner turmoil. Boltz admitted he had known about his sexual orientation since his teenage years, but had tried to suppress it due to his faith and societal expectations. The confession sent ripples through the evangelical world. Many churches stopped playing his music and longtime supporters turned away. But Boltz refused to be silenced. He continued creating music now aimed at LGBTQ+ Christians and allies, addressing spiritual trauma, rejection, and healing. His later songs, such as Who Would Jesus Love, redefined his message to center love, authenticity, and grace, particularly for those pushed out of traditional religious spaces. Unlike many artists on this list, Boltz never lived a double life in the public eye. He stepped forward with honesty, fully aware of the cost. His courage opened doors for many other LGBTQ+ people of faith who longed for representation and affirmation within their spiritual communities. Ray Boltz's journey is not one of scandal, but of truth-telling. He walked away from fame as he knew it to live honestly, choosing wholeness over applause. His legacy now speaks not only to believers seeking salvation, but to anyone seeking the freedom to love without shame. Trey Pearson. Trey Pearson's journey through the Christian music world is a compelling story of personal struggle, courage, and transformation. Born in 1981 in Ohio, Pearson grew up in a devout Christian household where his talent for music was nurtured from a young age. As the lead singer of the Christian rock band Everyday Sunday, he achieved widespread recognition in the early 2000s. Their music, filled with spiritual lyrics and positive messages, earned the band a loyal fan base, and Pearson became a beloved figure within the Christian music scene. For years, Pearson lived a life of public success while privately grappling with his sexuality. In a community where being gay was often met with condemnation, Pearson struggled with the fear of rejection from both his peers and his faith. He married his longtime girlfriend in 2006 in an attempt to fulfill what he believed were societal and religious expectations. However, despite his outward success, Pearson could not suppress his true self. The emotional toll of living in secrecy led to deep personal turmoil. In 2016, Pearson made a groundbreaking decision that would forever change his life and career. He came out as gay in an open letter published by Christianity Today. This decision sent shockwaves through the Christian music community, especially given his prominence within it. Pearson's announcement was a bold, vulnerable act of self-acceptance, but it also came with significant backlash. Many fans and religious communities who had once embraced his music distanced themselves from him, labeling him a sinner. Some of Pearson's longtime followers condemned him, calling his actions a betrayal of the faith he had so openly shared through his music. Despite the criticism, Pearson remained steadfast in his decision to live authentically. He continued to create music, but now his work spoke to the LGBTQ+ community and those who faced similar struggles. In 2017, he released his solo album Love is Love, which further cemented his place as an advocate for LGBTQ+ rights within the Christian community. His music became a powerful expression of love, authenticity, and faith in a world that often condemns those who deviate from traditional norms. Pearson's story is not just one of coming out, it's a powerful reminder of the importance of living in alignment with one's truth. While he faced immense challenges, his decision to embrace his sexuality allowed him to inspire others to do the same. Trey Pearson is a modern-day pioneer in the intersection of faith identity and self-acceptance, challenging the boundaries of Christian music, and proving that love is the truest path to spiritual freedom. Jennifer Knapp. Jennifer Knapp's story is one of resilience, self-discovery, and unwavering authenticity. Born in 1974 in Kansas, Knapp emerged in the late 1990s as a shining star in contemporary Christian music. Known for her powerful, soulful voice and introspective songwriting, she quickly gained recognition with albums like Kansas 1998 and Lay It Down 2000, which were praised for their spiritual depth and emotional vulnerability. Her music resonated deeply with Christian audiences, and she became a staple in the genre, celebrated for her poignant lyrics and folk rock sound. However, Knapp's personal life was marked by a conflict between her faith and her sexuality. Despite the success she found in the Christian music world, she struggled with her identity as a lesbian. For years, Knapp kept her sexual orientation hidden, fearful of the backlash she might face from her fans and the Christian community. The pressure to conform to religious expectations while living a lie weighed heavily on her. She married a man in an attempt to align with what she thought was expected of her, but this decision only intensified her internal conflict. In 2010, after a hiatus from music, Jennifer Knapp made a brave and life-changing decision. She publicly came out as a lesbian. In an exclusive interview with The Advocate, Knapp shared her journey of self-discovery and the pain of hiding her truth for so long. Her decision was revolutionary within the Christian music industry as it challenged the deeply ingrained conservative views on sexuality. Knapp spoke openly about how she reconciled her faith with her identity, sharing that she had always believed in God's love, but felt isolated by the judgmental views held by some Christians about LGBTQ+ people. The response to Knapp's coming out was mixed. Many fans and Christian organizations distanced themselves from her, with some condemning her for abandoning biblical teachings. However, she also found support from LGBTQ+ Christians who were struggling with the same tension. Knapp's honesty gave voice to a group of people who had been silenced and marginalized within the church. In the years following her coming out, she continued to write and perform, though her music and messages began to focus more on the intersection of faith and LGBTQ+ identity. Knapp's album Letting Go 2014 marked her return to music, offering a new perspective on faith, love, and personal freedom. In this work, she explored themes of self-acceptance, vulnerability, and love, unafraid to show her true self. Jennifer Knapp's journey has been one of courage, standing up not only for her own truth, but also for those who feel invisible in the church and broader society. Today, she continues to be a role model for LGBTQ+ individuals in religious communities, showing that it is possible to embrace both faith and identity in harmony. Marcia Stevens Pino. Marcia Stevens Pino is a pioneering figure in contemporary Christian music whose personal journey reshaped the genre in powerful and profound ways. Born in 1951, Stevens Pino rose to prominence in the early 1970s as a founding member of the influential Christian band Calvary Chapel. The band became instrumental in the development of what would later be known as the Jesus music movement, a genre of contemporary Christian music that blended rock, folk, and gospel influences to reach a new generation of spiritually seeking young people. Stevens Pino's contributions to the genre were not just musical, but also spiritual, as her songs became anthems for a movement that was at once rebellious and deeply devoted. Known for her hauntingly beautiful voice and thought-provoking lyrics, she was widely regarded as one of the most impactful female voices in Christian music at the time. Her work, especially songs like For Those Tears I Died, which was later renamed Heaven Song, resonated deeply with listeners in the burgeoning Jesus movement, a countercultural religious revival in the 1960s and 1970s. However, Stevens Pino's personal life diverged from the path laid out for her by the religious establishment. In the late 1970s, she made a courageous and controversial decision to come out as a lesbian, which was an almost unheard-of act for a Christian artist at the time. Her decision was met with considerable backlash, and she faced rejection from many within the evangelical community. Despite the criticism, she remained steadfast in her faith and began to openly address the struggles she faced as a queer Christian woman in her music. In the early 1980s, Stevens Pino founded Balm and Gilead Ministries, an organization dedicated to supporting LGBTQ+ Christians and fostering dialogue about faith and sexuality. The ministry's work has been groundbreaking, offering a safe space for LGBTQ+ individuals to reconcile their spirituality with their sexual identity, a task that had often been rendered impossible by the exclusionary practices of many traditional Christian institutions. Stevens Pino's commitment to both her faith and her identity as a lesbian turned her into a role model for those in the LGBTQ+ community who had been forced into the margins by religion. Her journey wasn't easy. She faced immense personal and professional challenges, but it was one of incredible courage and authenticity. Today, Stevens Pino continues to be an advocate for LGBTQ+ inclusion in the church, using her music and ministry to speak out against discrimination and to encourage others to live their truth. Marcia Stevens Pino's legacy is one of radical love and self-acceptance, offering a testament to the power of living authentically in the face of adversity. Douglas Miller. Douglas Miller is a revered figure in the world of gospel music, whose contributions have left an indelible mark on the genre. Born in 1953 in New Jersey, Miller quickly established himself as one of the most talented and influential gospel artists of his generation. Known for his powerful voice, emotional delivery, and ability to inspire through song, Miller became a staple in churches and gospel music circles across the United States. His music was deeply rooted in faith, with lyrics that conveyed messages of perseverance, hope, and divine strength touching the hearts of countless listeners. One of Miller's most famous and beloved songs, "My Soul Has Been Anchored in the Lord," became a gospel anthem embodying the very spirit of Black church music. The song's enduring popularity, combined with his other works, cemented Miller's place among the top gospel artists of the late 20th century. He was a celebrated performer, often found leading choirs and singing at large gospel events, with his rich tenor voice lifting spirits and uniting congregations in powerful worship. However, while Miller's professional life was marked by success and reverence, his personal life remained a subject of intrigue and speculation. For much of his career, rumors circulated regarding his sexual orientation, particularly as he never married and preferred to keep his personal life private. As with many gospel artists of his era, Miller's personal identity and relationship with his faith became tangled in the expectations of the church. The conservative values of the gospel world, especially within the Black church, made it difficult for artists like Miller to openly discuss their sexuality. Over the years, whispers of Miller's potential same-sex relationships were never confirmed, but they added a layer of complexity to his legacy. As an artist working in a deeply religious space, Miller was subject to the same pressures that many LGBTQ+ individuals in the church faced, fearing rejection and loss of credibility in an industry that often placed moral and doctrinal purity above all else. Miller never addressed these rumors publicly, maintaining a low profile about his personal life, which allowed his musical ministry to remain his primary focus. Regardless of these personal speculations, his impact on gospel music is undeniable. His commitment to spreading the gospel through music inspired and uplifted generations, and his songs continue to be sung in churches around the world. Douglas Miller passed away in 2021, leaving behind a powerful legacy of spiritual music. His story is one of quiet strength and the enduring power of faith and music as he navigated the complex intersection of artistry, faith, and personal identity. While his private life remains a matter of speculation, his public ministry and musical contributions will continue to inspire all those who encounter his work. Miller's journey reminds us that authenticity, both in music and life, is a path that often requires quiet courage. Kevin Terry. Kevin Terry, a gospel artist known for his dynamic voice and contributions to the genre, became a controversial figure within the Christian community due to a scandal that forced him to confront his personal life in the public eye. Born and raised in the church, Terry's love for music and ministry was nurtured from a young age. His powerful vocal delivery and charismatic performances quickly earned him recognition in the gospel world, and he became known for his ability to captivate audiences with his spiritual passion. Terry's career took off in the 2000s, with his music being celebrated for its upbeat style and contemporary gospel sound. He released several successful albums, earning respect for his vocal talent and his ability to create uplifting, powerful music that resonated with both secular and religious listeners. His music reached diverse audiences, and his concerts were marked by energetic performances that combined the fervor of traditional gospel with a modern, refreshing twist. However, despite his professional success, Terry's personal life became the subject of intense scrutiny. In 2014, an explicit video allegedly featuring Terry and another man was leaked online, causing a massive scandal in the gospel community. The video went viral and the backlash was swift. Many of Terry's supporters, especially those within the conservative Christian community, were shocked by the revelation, which posed a direct challenge to the expectations placed on gospel artists. Gospel music, particularly within the Black church, is rooted in traditional and often conservative values, and Terry's involvement in such a scandal seemed to conflict with the moral standards upheld by many of his fans. Terry initially remained silent about the incident, refusing to directly address the video or the rumors surrounding it. The scandal became a public spectacle, raising uncomfortable questions about privacy, forgiveness, and the intersection of faith and sexuality. As the video continued to circulate, Terry faced significant personal and professional challenges, including losing some of his fan base and seeing a drop in his career momentum. However, in the years that followed, he worked to rebuild his reputation and career. Despite the controversy, Terry continued to perform and release music, focusing on rebuilding his life and faith. Over time, he became more open about the challenges he faced in his personal life, including his struggles with privacy and judgment from his peers. He used his platform to discuss the pressures of being in the public eye while grappling with the intersection of faith and sexuality, becoming a more vocal advocate for acceptance and understanding within the church. Kevin Terry's journey serves as a complex reminder of the challenges faced by those in the public eye, particularly gospel artists who are often held to strict moral expectations. While his scandal brought intense scrutiny, it also shed light on the need for greater compassion, privacy, and support for individuals facing personal struggles. His story, marked by both public shame and personal redemption, reflects the ongoing tension between faith identity and the relentless pressures of fame. The gospel music world has always been one of faith, passion, and devotion. But behind the powerful performances and spiritual messages, some of its most iconic figures have struggled with hidden desires, secret relationships, and personal battles. From groundbreaking artists like Sister Rosetta Tharpe and Carl Bean to modern voices like Trey Pearson and Ray Boltz, these legends have navigated complex intersections of faith, sexuality, and public scrutiny. How do you think the church should address the personal lives of its artists? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Legends of Black Excellence for more stories like these.